Welcome to another edition of Success Talk. This is Dr. Herbert Harris, and the Success Talk is about listening and conversing with people who have done incredible things, but who have also overcome unbelievable challenges and who've made breakthroughs that have taken them to even higher levels. So tonight, tonight we have, let me tell you, folks, every now and then you have one of those special events. Well, this is a special event. Reverend Bernadette Jones, Bernette Jones. I want to call you
Bernette.
Bernadette. Yeah, Bernette Jones. Bernadette's a good name, but it's Bernette. Reverend Bernette Jones, a unity minister, a spiritual teacher, a spiritual leader. Welcome to Success Talk. Now, correct
Yeah.
everything I got wrong.
I am a Universal Foundation for Better Living minister.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
And right now I'm senior minister at the One God, One Thought Center for Better Living in Baltimore.
All right.
And we are affiliated with the Universal Foundation for Better Living, which is the Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman's organization. And she, of course, started out as a unity minister. So a lot of what we do is we share with
Yes.
the whole unity movement. But thank you for having me tonight. This is a great joy and pleasure and thrill to be able to just have a conversation with you. Yeah.
Well, I thank you for being here. And so often I've heard you on the Billionaire Mastermind Forum, and I see that everybody there holds you in such incredibly high esteem. Yeah. And you know, you have that nature. Well, you remember that commercial? Was it when E.F. Hutton talks, everybody listens?
Oh, okay.
I love that. Well, you know, Reverend, uh, I love to get a little background on the people I interview, and you know,
Okay.
we know where you are now, but where did you start? You know, where were you raised? Your family, your early years. How did you start out on this journey?
Wow. Let's see. Um, I am a native Baltimorean.
Mm,
I've been here all my 71 years in Baltimore, Maryland. I was born and raised in a family. My parents were from Carolina, from North Carolina, Scotland, a little town
okay.
that seldom heard of there.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
they migrated here in I guess in the early 50s.
Hmm.
I was born in 51. And I was the third of 7 children.
Mm,
So being in the middle there, I didn't get a whole lot of attention.
okay.
And I actually, being the third daughter, my dad was always expecting a boy. So he
Mm,
just kept trying and trying until he got that boy.
uh-huh.
And so my brother came along as the fifth child, but there are 4 of us before him and then 2 after him.
Uh-huh.
And but grew up in Baltimore City in the neighborhood, as they say, around the way,
Hmm.
and went to all my education was here in Baltimore. Went to Towson University for my undergraduate degree, and went to church a lot. Went to the
Mm,
little Baptist church around the corner a lot,
mm,
and decided after going, seemed like we just grew up there and spent all of our days and nights. And you would, in the Baptist church, you would go so many days a week. You had to go to the prayer meeting and the choir rehearsal and the ushers meeting and the this and that, and the um, just grew up in the church. But there was something missing for me there, at a
mm,
very early age. I think maybe around 8,
hmm.
as I can recall. I was hearing what sounded to an 8-year-old that they were saying that if you were not in that little church, which held about 150 people, maybe tops, standing
Hmm.
room,
Yes.
that you weren't going to heaven. This place that they were talking about called heaven, you weren't going. And it was
Mm,
something about that that just didn't sit right. I was like, well, what about the people who are on desert island somewhere,
mm,
never
yes.
had a Bible, never had this pastor.
Mm,
What about them? You mean to tell, would God set them up so they end up going to hell just because they happen to be born somewhere where there's no minister? It just
mm.
wasn't making sense to me, even as a
Yes,
child. But you
yes.
didn't dare ask.
Right,
You didn't
right,
dare talk
right.
about that, you
Mm,
know. And so I just held this thought. And then it was like, well, what about those people out there on the corner? You know, I grew up at what's now called Ground Zero,
mm,
North and Pennsylvania Avenue, you know, about 6 blocks away from there.
mm-hmm.
And it was the hood. And I was like, what kind of God is going to condemn all the rest of the people
Yes,
just because of where they happened to have grown up or happened to have been born?
yes.
And so I made up in my mind at that moment that if I didn't have to go to church,
Mm,
I didn't want anything else to do with organized religion.
religion. Yes.
I was giving up on it. And as soon as I got to college and I didn't have to go, I wasn't going to go.
Mm,
But I said to God, I'm not going to go to church. If it's anything you want me to know, you're going to have to tell me directly.
mm.
And that's what started to happen.
Wow.
With that invitation,
Yes.
my spiritual path began to open up. And
Mm,
I, you know, went to philosophy classes in college at Towson University and studied philosophy and studied uh, other wisdom traditions, if you will, ancient
mm,
wisdom traditions and
mm.
universal religions, and just started seeking to know, well, you know, what is this God? What is this? Uh, why would this God set people up like that?
Yes,
Only to discover that there was way more than that. It was
yes.
way more than what was being taught in the Baptist church.
Wow.
And
Yes,
I would go places and my teachers would appear. Books
yeah.
would fall off of the shelf and I'd pick it up, and that was exactly the
That's
next
it.
thing that I, you know, was destined to learn. And all kinds of experiences where people would come into my life and bring me messages. Um,
Mm,
and so I
yes,
was on the path at that by that point, you know, at a very early
yeah.
age.
Now,
Uh,
when did you, well, there came a time when you became an official minister. What did you do before that?
oh, let's see. I have worked for all the municipalities, city,
Mm-hmm.
state, and you know, governments, and I have had my own business. Was in business with partners um, in the '80s. I bought a beauty supply distributorship and
Mm-hmm.
had 6 stores and 30 employees.
Wow.
Made a million two in sales in the first year, and
Mm-hmm.
then it flopped.
Mm,
And my first great failure in life, and it just kind of landed me on the path because God was the only way that I could get any kind of mental and soul relief
mm.
from that big gaping hole there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Now,
So I've done a number of things. I was vice president for the Baltimore Urban League for years, for about
okay.
9 years.
Yes, yes,
Helped them to, you know, I was vice president for their programs there,
yes.
and spent a lot of time doing that. Yeah.
So, number one, as you were talking about your early years in the church, and I think my experience was similar in the sense that I wasn't yet seeking, but I knew I hadn't found it. you know, you know, I, I I wasn't sure I was lost, but I knew I wasn't found.
You said this can't be it. Oh, this can't.
This
Look,
can't
that's what
be.
I used to say.
Yeah,
It's something
yeah,
they're not telling us. There's
yeah,
something going on that they are not telling us in
yeah,
here.
yeah. And I was blessed. I left home at 16. I left North Carolina to come to Columbia to go to college at 16. And
Wow.
so I was able, and to get into the real world, I mean, at that early age. And so I was ready, to seek, that I think that was always the goal, to keep seeking. But, in retrospect, when I look at like the movement, I think in those days, the church really, the religious practices were like the front office, but the function of the church was much more profound and much more
Yes.
community and social oriented. There was, it's almost like there was a reason they had so many activities to keep the kids, especially the black kids, out of harm's way.
Yes. Yes.
Away from bad company, as they used to say. As long as you got them busy, they'll be okay. And the church, I mean, we had the boys club. My dad taught boxing. They had boxing in the church, and like you said, 6 days a week you were up in there some kind of way. And
Yes.
then
Yes.
my mother was the choir director,
Okay.
so that was a whole
Okay.
nother thing. Yeah, but
Yes.
the point I think is that it served a function, a very
It did.
necessary, especially social function.
It did.
Yeah,
Truly it did.
yeah.
That I
But
appreciated much, much later. I appreciate it.
yes,
But
yes,
while I was in it and going through it, it wasn't doing it for me.
that's
And I
it.
was and I was
Yeah,
actually angry about that.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I discovered much later uh that I was angry. It wasn't until I really got into ministry
yes.
that I was able to recognize the wholeness
Mm,
and the role that that played in my own development and development of so many other people, to
yes.
have that religious foundation,
Wow.
even though I strayed from that,
Yes, yes,
find my own path.
yes. Now, how did you finally? What was that transition like? From uh, the business person doing the things in the community, the urban league, and that's a job in itself. That's a whole other, dynamic. How did you make that transition, and what made you make the transition? Did you always want to
Well,
be a minister?
no, it was I ran. I knew that I was called to ministry, but I was running. I
Mm,
was going to try to do every. As a matter of fact, when my business failed and I went to the Urban League, it was because I wanted more meaningful service. I
mm,
realized that I was being called to ministry, but I wouldn't dare say yes. Um, and my first mentor in ministry was Wendell Phillips, who was a United Church of Christ minister here in
mm-hmm,
Baltimore. He was a statesman, helped
mm-hmm,
him, get elected to office. And he was the one who said to me, well, ministry doesn't have to look any particular way.
mm,
It can be however you hear God communicating to you for it to look. And he drove a motorcycle, smoked a cigar, had his collar hanging off, went in the bar. He was just a different kind of person, but he was
yes,
so real and
yes,
alive.
yes,
And to me, that was a path to ministry, that I could just express myself
mm,
truly, and who I felt I was being. But I was running.
yes,
When I
yes,
went to the Urban League, I was running. And it
mm,
wasn't until after the business fell apart and I asked God for a way to put my life in order, that I was able to come up with what I called building a pyramid in my consciousness,
mm,
designing my own life, and then sharing that with other people. And that gave me the courage to just say yes, to just
yes,
surrender and say
yes,
yes. I was going to the Unity Church here in Baltimore at the time.
mm,
And one of the people there who knew Johnny Coleman
yes,
wanted us to start a ministry here. So I became one of the founders of the One God, One Thought Center for Better
mm.
Living. I was only going to stay there 6 months, and then I was going to go on and do my thing. And next year it'll be
Wow,
20 years. So
wow,
yeah, I found my
yeah,
I found my right place. I found my life's work there,
yeah.
and have loved every minute of the 19 years that I've spent there.
Well,
Yeah.
that I think that's one of the great gifts when you can find your life's work. Sometimes, I see people who just never get there, and I feel
Yeah.
so bad. I,
Yeah.
you know, I guess as a minister, you get that urge sometimes. It's like, turn here, do this, do that. You're so
Yeah.
close, don't give
Yes.
up,
Yeah.
if you just reframe it, ask different questions, and,
Yes.
make different relationships. There's greatness within you. And
Yes.
yes,
One of the great privileges of being a
mm,
minister is getting to witness people
mm,
discover
Yes.
who they are really and their greatness, and to put it to work. And over time,
Yes.
seeing them grow and evolve, you get
Wow.
the privilege of being a witness to that. And the joy, the
Yes.
joy. Oh my gosh, my heart just goes out when I
Yes.
see people discover their purpose and their path and get on it and be active and, and just go out and take on the world. So I love
Well,
that.
that's almost like being a selective parent. When you're a biological parent, you sort of get what you got, through the birth process. you know, and and, and they listen or don't listen to an extent, but in that ministry and that shepherding, that guidance,
Yes.
you one of my teachers used to tell me, because I guess ministry and this pursuit gets you so excited, in the early years, you just want to save everybody and can't figure out why other
Yeah.
people don't see it. And, and you almost become persona non grata, here he comes
Yes.
talking that stuff again,
Talking that stuff. And they thought I was a sure enough space cadet because I was New Thought, metaphysician,
Oh,
mysticism, and world
yeah,
religion and all. They thought I
yeah.
was just a bona fide certified space cadet. It's
'Cause
like, what is she
oh
talking
man,
about?
I could hear my dad, who? You can't be nothing you can't spell, boy. Wow.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Well, one of my teachers told me, he said, Herbert, he said, because I was like, I'm doing this. He said, listen, he said, life is like a boat on a river. And there you are on this boat, and I later called it the boat of salvation on the river of time.
Yeah,
And there are these people on the shore who want to be saved, who say they want to grow, they want to know, they want to express another level of themselves.
yeah.
And he says, you keep trying to pull over and pick them up.
Uh,
He said, the key is to save those who will swim out to the boat.
yes,
I'm like, man, okay.
yes.
And
It
so,
does take some effort.
yeah, those people who
Effort.
really, really want it. When you make that transition from, I'll say, the secular world to that spiritual realm, h- how did the people around you respond to it as you made that move? The people closest to you.
Well, it was a process. I have a daughter who she was watching to
Mm-hmm.
see what was going to happen, whether I was going to, make that transition. And my sisters, who thought I
Mm-hmm.
was a space cadet at the time, and the people around me, my mom and dad, I think were the first two that I really shared it with. And
Mm-hmm.
because of the kind of life I had lived prior to that, I
Mm-hmm.
was a real party girl. I mean, I wasn't
Yeah.
thinking about though. And because of that, everybody just questioned, what is she saying she's doing here?
Yes.
And
Yes.
but once I surrendered, there was such a peace about me. It was such a comfort in my soul, saying yes and then learning, opening myself up to learn. I had not a clue how to pastor a church
Mm-hmm.
or to be a senior minister. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
was just like, what in the world am I saying yes to? But I said yes because I was one of the founders of the church.
Mm-hmm.
The senior minister was moving on, and Spirit had already guided me to go into the Johnny Coleman Theological Seminary and into the ordinating program. And so I was ordained. And the day I was ordained, the day I learned that I had passed, I hadn't even been ordained yet. I got a call from our UFBL president asking me if I would take the church in Baltimore and be the senior minister.
Wow.
And it was that fast.
Yes.
And I just committed myself.
Yes. Yes.
I just committed myself. And over time, I think the greatest gift I received was from my dad before his transition, when he came to hear one of my services.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in the line, he said, "I am so proud of you.
Wow.
You are doing what I would have been doing. And my dad was a real spiritual and religious guy. He was
Yes.
both
Yes.
spiritual and religious, very creative. Um, and my mother coming through the line and saying, seemed like when I come to your church, I learned something.
Mm.
That was surprising to her.
Yeah. Now, who would have
Because
thought?
seemed
Yeah.
like when I come here, I'm actually learning something.
Wow. Yeah.
But it was, when you step through that threshold, it's like stepping through a portal
Mm.
into a whole different life and a whole different world. What matters is different. The
Mm-hmm.
things that are material matter much less
Mm-hmm.
than the things that are spiritual. And what was more important to me was learning how to bring things from the invisible realm of spirit into the manifest realm of materiality, and to
Mm.
to
Yeah.
prove this law of demonstration, the ability to do that, and that I'm a spiritual being, and to teach other people,
Mm.
the laws and principles of the universe that make that possible. So people around me, they were like, let me just see.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Let me just see.
Yeah.
And then for many of them, and my sisters who used to call me space cadets, and then they're like, well, I want some of that. Tell me,
Yeah.
tell me how
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So it's been an enjoyable journey. It's been not an easy journey,
Mm.
uh, because I had to confront my own self issues and self image issues, and just a whole ton of things, self talk.
Well, now,
Um, but
yeah.
I was willing. I was willing.
But now that's something I'd like to hear a little about, because I think that many times people are drawn, but different things block them, different things, mindsets, different feelings, different emotions, different baggage. And
Yes.
so what was that transition like? What was the battle with yourself that that
Well,
that
it was,
Mhm.
yeah, it was the battle. What are they gonna? These people have known how I have lived my life. Now
Mhm.
I'm saying this,
Mhm.
and my self talk was, nobody wants to hear what I have to say.
Mm.
That's the wrong look, and that is the wrong conversation to have in your head if you're leading a congregation of people and up there speaking in front of them,
Mhm.
on a regular basis.
Uh-huh.
But that was there. My self-esteem, my self worth and value issues, all just came right up into my face. But once I surrendered, I was not seeing myself as any of that. None of that really mattered. I consider myself a wallflower, the background person who helps out the person who's up front.
Mm.
When
Okay.
I was called to lead, I had to let go of a whole lot of conversations. But the first thing I had to do was hear them. I had to be
Mm.
willing to hear that that's what was really going on and driving my life. And once I could hear that and surrender that, and forgive myself for
Mm.
a lot of things in the past that I wasn't so proud of, um, then I was able to hear spirit and develop that relationship. I love solitude. I
Mm.
would just meditate for hours and hours and pray and read, and here spirit was handing me an opportunity to do all the things I love to do, and the church was willing to pay me for it.
Mm.
So I became a full-time pastor, minister,
Yeah.
CEO of a organization, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was a package that I would have never put together for myself.
Wow.
I was running from it,
Yes.
but it ended up being perfect for me,
Wow.
just truly perfect for me.
Yeah.
It was those first years were they were challenging, but I
Mhm.
was willing. You're dealing with so many people, your own issues, and then different states of consciousness with all the people who you're serving,
Yes. Yes.
you know. Uh,
Mhm.
so I just learned to get out of my way and to be spirit driven.
Mm, mm.
to operate from the Christ of my being. Once I discovered what that was, to develop that intimacy with spirit, um, so that I knew what spirit's voice was and follow that.
Mm.
And spirit orchestrated all the details, and we're still here. You know, this is
Wow.
our 28th year in ministry.
Ministry. Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Did you ever have to challenge that, I guess, that ego battle? Sometimes the ego battle of who you are, who you see yourself to be. Um, or was there a time when you had to sort of contain the ego, master the ego?
Well, you know, the thing about the ego for me, because I never wanted to be, I never aspired to be a minister.
Uh-huh.
It was not an aspiration.
Mm-hmm.
I was simply being willing and opening myself to give myself away,
Yes.
you know, really. And so it wasn't uh, an egotistical journey
Okay.
at
Mm-hmm.
all. It,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm just now getting to the place where even having a conversation about myself, you know, I people would say, well, what is it like being a Black woman minister? You know, when you go, I would go to churches and the they didn't want me to come up in the pulpit, you know,
Mm.
to say what it was I had to say.
Yes.
And I never saw myself as a Black woman minister.
Yes.
I just saw myself as God's instrument,
Mm-hmm.
and I was willing to do what it required. And I didn't even, not that I even knew what that was. I learned. The people who I served taught me
Yes.
how to serve them. They taught me how to pastor and shepherd them. And so my ego was never in the way. It was just never a issue for me.
Yes. Yes.
I'm learning how to deal with that now.
Mm.
You know, I'm just
Yes.
now learning how to be in front of cameras and have interviews with prominent people like Dr. Herbert Harris, and you know, and brand. You know, people are telling me you should brand yourself. I'm like, brand myself. You
Uh-huh.
know,
Yes.
uh,
Yes. Wow.
so that part was just not. It was not a big challenge. You know, I was always at the Urban League. They used to always say, "Don't believe your own press clippings."
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that was one that you start reading your own press releases and thinking that they're real. Yes. Yes. Well, sometimes I often say, I was counseling a group. We had a meeting, and the question was, how do you find new leaders? It was after the political, um, this last campaign, and my position was that that there was no vision there for a moment. That
Yes, yes,
that one party had a very clear vision of what it wanted, and the other party didn't. You know,
yes,
and as I looked at it, one party was saying, "How can I not lose as much?" And the other party was saying, "How can I win more?"
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
and
yes,
so it says, well, who had the vision in one party? Who was seeing the vision of let me not lose? That's a very weak vision.
yes,
And,
yes,
and so one of the people said, well, it's funny. Leadership is funny. He said, over time, the people who really want to be leaders rise to the top,
yes, yes.
whether they are qualified or whether they have a vision or not. Maybe their only vision was that they're at the top.
Uh,
And
but
that
you
they
know,
don't. Uh-huh,
I have my theory about leadership
uh-huh.
is that you got to be taking people someplace.
Yes,
Leadership is not just ego driven. I'm jumping in front of a parade that's already moving.
yes, yes,
Leadership is I have an inspired vision for what's possible
yes,
and highest and best
yes,
for the people.
yes,
And that integrity,
yes.
excellence, and stamina.
Mm,
Those three things are what will determine whether or not you can lead.
mm,
Integrity to the vision You know, we're the leader is the vision keeper. That really is the role. And that's a challenge in and of itself, just to hold the vision
Mm.
as it has been given to you. You know, it's
Yes.
a spiritual tuning up and tuning in. And then, of course, the excellence is simply about the quality, being able to be honest and transparent and to have a quality of service that is just the highest possible with what it is that you have to work with. But then comes the issue of stamina. Can you stay the course? Can you keep your physical body, your mental body, and all of what you're working with in terms of your own household and your own consciousness? Can you maintain that in a way that you have the endurance, you know, the endurance to be able to continue? So those three, to me, those three things must be present. And I also don't know how much I agree with leader. I actually advocate leadership because to me, leadership spans a broader spectrum of people involvement on one accord, having their consciousness in the one mind, that Christ mind, and then doing what's appropriate, showing up, be present, really care, and do what's appropriate. And let spirit orchestrate the details. I call that spirit-driven leadership. And in that, we got more than one strategy. We're bringing all of what we have to it. And so a lot of my work is helping people to see that leadership ability and quality, that when I toss the ball to you, you're going to know what to do with it when it's your turn. And it's not going to all just be on me.
Yes.
You know, we are in this together.
Yes.
And it's a whole different consciousness. It's the mastermind consciousness.
Yes. Yes. Well, you know, when you go back and look at, you know, I think sometimes the Moses principle, where it seems that there has to be a person who takes people. And yeah, I was telling the group, I said, one of the things about the Moses principle is that the Moses type leader is not one who's ego driven.
Yes.
And you know, I love reading the Bible from that spiritual perspective. So Moses, like many of us, made excuses. Like, I don't want to do it. I can't do this. I stutter. Talk. Yeah, I can't talk, you know, and who did I say sent me anyway? Because nobody's gonna listen. You know. And I was telling the group, I said, maybe that's the type of leader we want. The leader who he doesn't appoint himself.
Yes.
But God, the circumstances appoint him. You know, in the Old West, they always had somebody. There's a film I saw where there's always that person who stays up in the mountains, and when the challenge comes, when, you know, tragedy, when somebody's coming trying to take everything, and they're like, you better go get Joe. You know,
yeah, right.
You know, we need Joe really badly, and Joe comes down and cleans house. And then the interesting thing is they want Joe to go back up to the mountain.
Right.
You know?
Now go home, right?
Yeah, now go home. And so when I look at that leadership, it's like you want to pick a leader. You don't want a leader to volunteer. You want like, hey, we need you. It's like in your church. Now that's an excellent example. Now you wanted to serve. I think that's the gist I get. Yes. And the church said, we need somebody to lead.
Yes.
And and that was a perfect environment, a person who wants to serve being called to lead.
And, you know, God does not call the qualified. God qualifies the called.
Ooh,
so once you have been called and broken out of your own self-talk, you're going to stretch. You know, it's just a stretching process of growth and development and unfoldment and challenges and everything that goes with it. But it's the faith and spiritual certainty that not only is it that God's got your back? But in our theology, God is actually doing the work through you,
There
speaking
you go.
through your mouth,
Yes.
doing the
Yes.
work, telling you, giving you direction. And it's
Yes.
about staying tuned up and tuned into that
Yes.
at all times. At
Yes.
all times. Be ye ever ready.
Yes.
I
Wow.
learned that too. I can remember
Yes.
going to look, I can remember showing up at somebody's memorial service, and I was the person who was supposed to be doing the service, and nobody had ever told me.
Mm.
Be ye ever ready.
Ready. Yes.
You don't know the day or the hour.
Hour. Wow.
And so it becomes a way of life.
Yes.
It becomes, to serve God, the people, all of it as a whole.
Yes.
You
Reverend, if the way you speak it, it sounds so smooth. Can you think of one or two challenges that, either, and even not even just in the ministry, I mean, you were a person before you made that judgment, but one or two of the challenges of life or the challenges of leadership, but those challenges that really bring about a realization of another you, of another possibility, and how you handled it.
When I was about a couple years into ministry as the senior minister, I had a health challenge, went into the hospital, and some of the members of my board made some decisions that I didn't agree with. Never told me, and just did it. They actually eliminated a staff position that of someone who I had hired to assist me and support me. And so it felt like betrayal. It felt like they had gone behind my back and had made some decisions that were going to impact me and the ministry. And I think what helped me in that situation, not only the forgiveness, being able to look over there and to really forgive that, but to become aware that these were a group of people whose consciousness had not evolved yet to the point where they even understood what they were doing. It wasn't even intentional. They were just being like they are being when they were in there grappling crabs in a barrel in the street, and they simply had not yet. But what I had to learn to do was hold the vision for everybody being there. Hold the space in my mind and in my consciousness that it was possible for these people on my board to be there. I've had the situation where board members actually went and told lies on me, and that was just a hurt to my heart, because in that situation, I had not shared myself with them transparently enough for them to know that I'm not the person who would be doing something like that. And so, it's the challenges with people who are in different states of consciousness, and your vision for leadership is about helping people to grow their consciousness and elevate their consciousness. And people are all over the place. It's finding a place to stay within your own being and my own consciousness. I had to grow spiritually within my own consciousness, and spirit took care of all the rest. I call it just treading water. I had to tread water and wait until they caught up, some of them. And some of them are still there and now have turned the corner. And now they have a whole different level of way of seeing it and a whole different consciousness. So I've had that kind of challenge in ministry. I guess one of the biggest challenges was when my business went out of business just before I accepted the call to ministry, being so down in the dumps that I didn't know whether I wanted to even continue to be here. Just depression and those kinds of things. And God revealing to me a living system, that allowed me to structure and put order and, put spiritual and personal and relationship and life work and community and put it in order and live from that on a daily basis. And have the adventure of life come back. Wow. That was one of the most challenging times in my life to fail.
Yeah.
To fail and fall on my face. But it always goes back to spirit. It's always a spiritual path. It's a part of the journey. And when I could accept it as a part of the journey and see the things that I learned and how I grew, versus focusing on being down on the ground and bummed out, then it was a whole different experience. It made me richer.
Yeah.
So
that, I think one of the things about what you call them colossal failures, people can have personal failures and nobody knows about it. At least you don't think they do. But when you have a business failure out in front of everybody and the people who counted on you, the people who believed in you, and the people who my dad used to say when stuff goes wrong, he said half the people don't care and the other half are glad it's you.
Not them.
Yeah.
I truly do get that, but it was a bummer. And I mean, it was just like a flat on your face kind of, with everything, all the intrigue and, the guy I thought I was going to get married to. He was my partner and he went back to Kenya and it was drama like that. And his family told him that he had to come back and he couldn't marry me. And, it was that kind of drama. And it was just, but it was a path. It was an opening. Because when you down, what did they say? The only place you got that you can go is up.
Yes. Yeah.
It's all good. Every step is a good step. Just down and out, broke and busted and mind, heart, and spirit, everything. Just down there. And spirit, I remember screaming out to spirit one day, God. Oh God, help me. And I can hear just as clear as you and I are talking. Voice said, I was wondering when you were going to ask.
Yes.
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 Here I am. I was wondering when you were going to ask. You thinking you could do it all by yourself.
Wow.
That was a pivot point for
me. Yes.
To rely on spirit. I have a joyful life now.
Yes. But you had to get through it to get to it.
I had to get through it to get to it.
Wow.
And learn the lessons. They say what's more powerful than learning the lessons is when you don't learn.
Yes.
And that means you got to go back through and learn again. That cosmic 2x4 comes back again. And it's like,
well,
thought you knew this, didn't you?
Yeah. and I guess there's so many levels of understanding it. It's like you didn't get it on the right level. You understand it. We're on this mountain of consciousness, and you only understood it at 5,000 feet. Now that you're at 8,000 feet, it's different.
It's
same
different.
issue. Yeah, the air is thinner now. You got to pace yourself a little better. You can't run around with the same intensity you did at 5,000 feet when you're at 8,000 feet.
Yeah.
I went up Pikes Peak, and I think Pikes Peak is about, I think it's like 5,000 or 6,000 feet. Anyway, you can see about 150 miles on a clear day. And the amazing thing was I did not really realize how quickly the altitude affected people.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And they have a little train that goes, it's up, almost feels like it's going up vertical, that takes you up there. And when you get off the train, when you go with people and, you all had breakfast together and you came on the bus together and you get on the train together and you get up top, and all of a sudden couple of folks got intensely ill, you know.
Oh,
And
wow.
she said, one lady, she said, I can't, I got to get the next train back. I can't stay up here, you know. I can't breathe, you know. Another person got nauseous. And meanwhile, I'm like, man, this is great. I'm just having you know, and even like the flies up there are different. You know,
Uh-huh.
the flies at 5,000 feet are some very aggressive flies. I mean, they don't play. They don't fly. They don't land on your food. They take your food. You
Thank
know,
you.
and uh, and so it said, you know, on this consciousness journey, as you're going up that mountain,
Yeah.
everybody is affected differently. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Some
And
people start chemicalizing and all manner of
yeah.
stuff breaks out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Up at the top there, they actually had a military unit, and their role was to train the soldiers for going into Afghanistan in those high mountains up there.
Okay. Okay.
And that it was a whole different, like people would get angry. They were easy to get angry up there. You had to really pace your physical stuff. And so,
Yes.
yeah. And
Yes.
so our lives are like that, you know, that we really have to pace yourself. And that's a beautiful realization that you were sharing. That was a breakthrough, you know?
Yes.
Mhm, mhm,
Yes. Yes. You really do.
mhm.
And as people go through their, the point of ministry is to equip
Yes.
the people to
Mm.
go and do ministry in the
Yes.
world.
Yes.
It is
Yes.
not to do it for them, it is to equip them so they can have the experience. It is a wonderful experience to serve people as a servant leader. It's
Mm.
a wonderful experience to enjoy and be a part of the richness,
Yes.
that comes out of people feeling themselves empowered enough to go out and do something
Yes.
that they never knew they could do.
True. Wow.
It's just wonderful. And my theory, if you will, is the more people that I can put out there doing it, equipping them. It's my theory, and I have a book that I'm going to write about it called The Eclectic Ecclesia.
Okay.
Different kinds of people have different constituencies that can hear them.
Mm.
And to be able to teach principles, truth principles that people can use in their lives to very different kinds of people with different kinds of constituencies, that means we can reach more people.
Yes.
Because there are people who can't hear me, who can
Mm.
hear this person over here or this person over there.
Yes.
So I'm constantly looking for who God is sending to me to
Mm.
teach,
Yes.
to be
Wow.
able to go and serve their constituency.
Wow.
It's a
Wow.
strategic
Yes.
effort,
Yes.
in my mind,
Yes.
to, a spiritual strategy
Yes.
of how we begin to resolve some of these issues that we see coming up in our world,
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
by putting some, people who are really convicted and who really know truth
Yes.
and live by that, putting them out there amongst the people.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's so, as you were thinking, sharing that, I was thinking about that point in where Moses was told, you got to get other people. You got to have, you can't sit and listen to these issues. You got to appoint other judges, other leaders among men
That's right.
who can do that. And so
That's right.
that's the spiritual model. That's the model
Yes.
right there.
The
And
eclectic ecclesia. Yes.
eclectic is because ego is telling you that you're the only one. You have
That's right.
all the answers,
That's
and
right.
and nobody can do
And
it
you
like
don't.
you.
That's right. And
Wow.
nobody ever does ministry alone.
Yes. Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So
If you're doing ministry alone, then you probably shouldn't have a church.
it ain't ministry because it's not my church. I
Yeah.
tell people all
Yeah.
the time, they say, oh,
Yeah.
that's Reverend Bernette's church.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not my church. This is God's church.
Yes. Yes.
And the church is in the people. It's
Mm.
not in this building.
Yes.
So,
Now, I
yeah.
tell you, Reverend Burnett, just amazing. If you think back, what would you consider your greatest breakthrough? what's the thing that you're most proud of? Your greatest victory?
Mm. Feeling the fear of failure
Mm.
and just doing it anyway.
Ooh, feeling the fear of failure,
And just doing it
doing it
anyway.
anyway.
Taking a step, getting the universe's feedback. I was afraid to pastor people. I was afraid to be the senior. Bernette was, the ego part of me was,
Yeah.
but I was able, there was something compelling about this call to service.
Mm.
Was something compelling about this being the answer to somebody's prayer.
Yes.
It was something compelling about that. It wasn't what I, Bernette, little B, wanted.
Yes.
It was this higher self that we all are a part of, being able to find me useful and
Mm.
me making myself available
Yes.
and being willing. That was a great overcoming.
Yes.
Because you don't know how many years I ran.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think it was going to be satisfying and fulfilling.
Yes.
It's been
Mm.
the most satisfying and fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life.
Wow. Did you ever have to deal with distractions? Because once you're on the path,
Oh,
and how did you deal with that?
you know, the distractions are always there. A lot of times they're so subtle you don't even realize it's a distraction.
Mm.
You just kind of going along and got one habit, or you got one thing there that that's like I can remember a point in time when I was watching TV,
Mm.
only to discover that that was distracting me from time that I could be putting into my study and solitude and things that I loved way more than that. But that was just interesting. They out there doing this and doing that. The world is doing this and that. However, that distracted my attention from being able to rely on spirit, because I was believing what I was seeing
Mm.
as what was really going on.
Yes.
The more I communed with spirit, contemplated, studied, spent time in meditation, spent time in prayer, spent time teaching, um, it didn't feel like a sacrifice. It felt like, wow, I'm giving myself some space to really discover the reality, the real reality, the reality that doesn't change reality.
Mm. Yes. Yes.
And that just became more important to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when I learned to meditate, I ended up giving up smoking cigarettes. I had smoked cigarettes a pack a day,
Mm-hmm.
while I was in college.
Yes.
When I discovered meditation and the breathing that was required,
Yes.
I discovered I was going to have to make a choice.
Mm.
So I made a choice to learn the breathing techniques and to
Mm-hmm.
do that and to give up the cigarettes. I quit cigarettes cold turkey
Mm-hmm.
because I had something that was a greater priority to me.
Wow.
It was more important to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was more important to my soul's growth. And it felt better.
Wow.
Felt better
Yes.
being able to breathe.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So distractions, they come and they go.
Yes.
The more attention you give them, and this is a part of the truth principles we teach, the more you
Mm-hmm.
focus on something, the
Mm-hmm.
bigger it gets.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And when you can say, you know what, as for me and my house,
Mm.
we're going to focus this way.
That's right. I will serve the
I'm
Lord.
going to I'm going to serve the Lord. I'm going to make an intentional, conscious choice.
Mm.
And I can do either. I can
Yes.
go with the distractions. Some distractions are really good.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
The food, the sex, the
Yes.
this,
Yes.
the hanging out, and
Yes.
the
Yes.
having stuff piled up. material
Yes.
stuff just
Yes.
piled up,
Yes.
shoes in the
Yes.
closet, and clothes,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
So
Yes.
material stuff is, you know, it's good distraction. And at some point you just have to make a choice.
Yes. Wow.
Just
Yeah.
make a choice. And doesn't say that you won't have some distraction from
Yes.
time to time. This is a holistic life.
Yes.
You know, you're in a flow, you
Mm.
know. So you're flowing between, you know, but
Yeah.
at some point, just like I guess with a physics background, you would know this, that the lights, when we look at them, looks like they're steady on, but they're flashing. They're
That's
actually
right.
flashing
That's right. That's
on
right.
and
Yeah.
off.
Yes.
But you know, you get to the point where you're on more often than you're off.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
Mm.
and you just notice how that feels.
Yes.
You know, to be lit up and to be joyful and peaceful and happy and graceful, and how things just attract into your experience.
Yes.
Great beauty and great experiences and great people who are doing great things. I mean, it's a great
Yes.
life living it that way.
Yes. Well, you know, Reverend, one of the reasons when we were writing the 12 Universal Laws of Success, one of the things that I found in, observing people were were the distractions from the study. The distractions, one of the reasons we wrote the book the way we did in little pieces is you take some of the success books and you got to be a real reader. When you
Yeah.
pick up, the even Think and Grow Rich. You got to be a real reader, and you get a sense that you have to read the whole book. And one of the reasons we put it together the way we did is because we realized that distractions seem to be a part of life. And if you can
Yes.
keep a person focused for a little bit of enough time on a particular outcome, you can help them grow. Mhm.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Because
Yes,
that consistency with discipline, the
yes,
consistency with discipline will build and build and build.
yes.
You know, I got my copy right here.
Well,
When
well,
I
you have
went
a
back,
unique. Yeah. How did you find the book first, and you know, what did you like
Doc,
about it? Yeah.
you know what, Dr. John Chazelle, who was a noted physician in Baltimore on optimal health,
Mm-hmm.
you signed a copy of this. And I'll read the inscription in the front. I just found this today.
Uh huh.
I was going to buy another copy because I had given my first copy away to somebody.
Uh huh.
Let me, wait a minute, look. This is one of the best digest
Mm-hmm.
because of the way that it's structured. This is a little pocketbook handbook that you ought to carry around with you under your arm,
Uh huh.
because it has such great, it's just such great points. It gets to the point.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a lot of fluff. It gets to the point, and it gives specific direction and specific points. And I didn't realize how much I had loved it. But let me just read you the script here
Uh-huh.
that you had said to Dr. John Chazelle: continued success with your important work. God bless you, my friend, Robert Harris. And this was in 98. So that was just a
1998.
year after this was published.
Yes. Yes.
And this ended up in his library. And when he made his transition, his daughters donated his whole library to
Uh
the
huh.
One God, One Thought Center. So now that is our library now, along with
Wow.
other titles that we've included. And
Uh-huh.
I looked for this in my own library and
Uh-huh.
could not find it. And today, while I was over at the church, I said, Spirit, I know that book is in here. Lead me to it. Led me right to it.
Wow. Isn't that amazing?
It led
And
me right to it. And when I went back and started reading how well the chapters are put together, and I love, I was wondering, where did I learn that technique for that you talk about in the introduction, where you go through and examine it first.
yes.
Look at the table of contents.
Yes.
Look at the
Yes.
titles. Look
Yes.
at the, what's in the bibliography, what's in the back. Look at
Yes.
what's in here first. Then you go back
Yes.
and you do your study, and you do now this is the section. You have whole sections in here that you could just work on just that section
Yes. Yes.
for a short period of time.
Yes.
You know, I love it. I absolutely love it. And the laws of, you know, the stages of life, the universal law of thought, the universal law of change, the universal law of vision. I mean, you broke it down in such great bite-sized pieces where you can
Yes.
eat it and chew on it and digest it
Mm.
and have it work for you.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
become fuel for your consciousness,
Yes.
to grow your consciousness and build that success muscle. You
Yes.
know, once you use that success muscle, it
Yes.
starts, you know, serving you. It starts
That's it.
growing.
And it
Then,
never
you
goes
know, then you
back.
get that, yeah, then you get that soul rhythm going with it.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Yeah.
and before you know it, you just like, you got
Yeah.
momentum, you rocking and rolling, as they
Yeah.
say.
Yes. Yes. Wow.
Love it.
Thank you. Thank you. That well, it's been a blessing, when we were writing the book. I don't know if you remember Tony Brown. Tony Brown. Remember
I
Tony
do
Brown's
remember
journal?
Tony Brown. Yes.
And I had sold my company, and I realized I didn't have enough money to stay in New York. I actually had retired from my law practice, and I went to Cleveland. And I tell people it's so good to solve that riddle of survival. You notice that in the Christ, they say he was a carpenter. That's a builder, and that once he got to that spiritual stage of being the teacher and the person that he
Yes.
became,
Yes.
that he didn't have to worry about eating and sleeping and money and where
That's
the
right.
wherewithal of life. And so once we had solved that riddle, I call it the riddle of survival, we went to Cleveland and had that ability to sit in the quiet, and to stop
Yes.
and to really structure, the time. The one thing we always have control over is the time. You might not be creative, you might not write a darn thing, but if you have control over that time, so if I don't write a word, I'm gonna be at this desk for 4 hours.
Yes. Yes.
Monday through Friday, from 9 to 1, I will be at this desk. I'm gonna prime the pump, and God, I know that it's gonna come to me, and then
Yes.
and then let it flow. Yeah. Mm.
Yes. Practice.
Yes.
Consistent practice.
Yes.
Yes.
Now,
Practice makes automatic.
yes.
Yes.
Well, one teacher said, he said, practice make perfect.
Uh,
Make sure it's good practice.
that's right. Good practice makes
Yes.
perfect. That's right. And I
Uh,
say practice makes
Yes.
automatic. And
Yes.
be conscious and intentional about what you're practicing, because whatever it is, it's
It's
going to become automatic. It's going to
automatic.
become a habit. So if you
Wow.
can practice some good stuff,
Yes.
and you're on the way. Yeah, I love this.
Yeah.
I really do, and I thank you.
Right.
I thank you for it. As I was sharing with you earlier, I
Yeah.
found myself. I found myself channeling this work this morning on the Billionaire Mastermind Forum.
Yes. Yes.
It was
Yes.
just startling to me how much,
Yes.
when I went back and took a look at this, how much
Beautiful.
alignment there
Yes.
is.
Yes.
You got it, like heart and
Yes.
mind are
Yes.
in tune, and I
Vibration.
like that.
Yes.
Yes, I like that.
Now, Reverend, I have two questions. One, what would you tell your younger self right now? Said you can look at yourself 25, 35 years ago, 40 years ago. What would you tell your younger self if you could talk to your younger self right now with what you know?
You don't know everything,
Mm,
and yet you do know everything. Go and find someone who has treaded the path successfully and learn from them. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to do it all on the same day just because you had the idea today. You can actually learn from other people and improve on what you've learned.
mm,
People can teach you something, but don't go trying to reinvent the wheel when people are already out there who've done some things. I have been very impulsive uh, in life as a younger person, and I didn't trust people who could have taught me. Um, you had to have a certain kind of energy and consciousness before I would even listen to you, you know.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And but that's what I would tell myself is, mentoring is a good thing.
Mm.
And there are people, there are good people
Yes.
who have tread this path before you. You're not the first one, you're not the only one, and you're not going to be the last one.
Mm.
So don't
Yes.
try to do it yourself.
Yes. Yes.
You know.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the wisdom words that
Yeah.
if I had to do it again, I try not to say that I would have been much further than what I am, because I know I'm in my right and perfect place,
Yes. Yes.
doing and being exactly what I'm supposed to do, to be and do right now,
Yes.
at this time. And even the best is yet to come, as you say, you know.
Yes.
Dr.
Yes.
Johnny used to always say that too, and,
Yes.
and many other leaders, you know, the best is yet to come. You still
Yes.
here, you still
Yes.
moving, you still in it. The
Yes.
game ain't over.
That's
You
it.
know, you still, yes.
Let's
So
see. Now, I guess my last question, what would you tell your future self at 95, at 100, whatever that number may be? What would you tell your future self?
that you have left a legacy
Mm.
that is a great foundation for somebody to build the next leg of the journey.
Mm.
You've left something that's very solid. You have left something that you've taught people, yourself and other people, how to truly love God, self, and others.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've laid a good foundation
Mm.
and legacy that other people, your children, your grandchildren, and other people's children and grandchildren, and people who just hear your name will know that they now also can
Mm.
build something strong and powerful and awesome,
Mm.
that serves all of us. Yes.
Woo! I tell you, Reverend Bernette Jones, this has been just a joy. I mean, really just a joy. You know, I feel like we've been together for years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like this is
Yeah.
our regular weekly
Yes.
chat or something.
Yes. 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 So is there anything else you'd like to leave with our, we have such a varied audience, and, oftentimes, we get into marketing and we say, oh, what is your target market? Who are you trying to get? But what I've been learning in this whole interview process is we put it there that the message in these interviews is so profound that they will find the person that needs to hear them.
That's right. I believe that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. I
So,
believe that.
is there any final thoughts you'd like to leave our audience and leave that person who's waiting to hear the word?
Just that higher consciousness living
Mm.
is possible.
Mm.
It's possible to live from a higher consciousness, but you got to be reaching up. You got to be reaching up and reaching out and going beyond your boundaries and limitations that you put on yourself. You know, I just turned 71 years old on my last birthday, and approaching it, I had all this self-talk going on about, oh, now, you going into the, you too old for the. I said, forget all that.
That's right.
I got some great things I'm still ready to do. I'm ready to elevate and move up and go to a greater pace and, come out from under the radar and do a whole lot of things. So don't count me out.
All right. Wow.
So that's what I would say is, just acknowledge what you've been saying to yourself, and then choose whether you want to keep saying that or do you want to say something different.
Woo.
That'll take you someplace else.
Because what you say is what you get.
What you say is what you get. Wow. That's right. So
Well, Reverend, I have
I've
tell you,
enjoyed
I
this.
have enjoyed this. We're gonna
Yeah.
we're gonna spend some time doing some things together because I can feel a harmonic relationship.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of wealth of knowledge and experience, and I have knowledge and experience, and we are both in the
Yeah.
same time frame in the universe,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and we both have that capacity to see ahead and behind,
Yes.
and to
Yeah.
see it from a higher vibration, to always be looking down. It's
Yes.
when you're in the satellite and you look at the earth, you see it
Oh,
as just a very peaceful, beautiful,
yes.
panoramic thing. When you're
Yes.
standing on the block and you look at the
Yeah.
earth, you're like, oh my God, let me search myself.
It's all about perspective, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It's all about perspective. Yeah.
So
Higher consciousness living. That's what I suggest.
yes.
Raise your consciousness and live from there.
All right. Raise your consciousness and live from there. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being with us on Success Talk. And those of you who are watching and who will be listening to this video, I know you're going to want to hear it many times over. Within it, there are so many nuggets. This interview is like a gold mine, and you'll find veins on that gold mine. And when you find your vein, based on what you hear, follow that vein, because the mother
Mm.
lode for you is going to be there,
Wow.
so that you can be whatever you want to be. You can do whatever you want to do. You can have
Yes.
anything you desire,
Yes.
always knowing that the best is yet to come. And so it is.
Amen. So it is.